There is one major item I want to focus on today, and then I will take some questions. For years, Qatar protected Hamas. Now, it's Turkey's turn. Hamas leaders are now reportedly in Turkey after over a decade in Qatar. The United States pressured Qatar, a major non-NATO ally, to kick Hamas out. But now Turkey, an actual NATO member, is welcoming Hamas in. And this while Israeli hostages are still struggling to survive in Hamas's underground terror tunnels. Qatar provided luxury villas to Hamas. Qatar gave almost $2 billion to Hamas. Qatar gave political cover to Hamas. The real question is, should we expect anything different from Turkey? Well, let's see how they both responded on October 7th. On October 7th, while the Hamas massacre was still taking place, Qatar condemned Israel. 2 weeks later, Turkey's President Erdogan praised Hamas. He said that Hamas is not a terror organization, rather it is a group of muhadin, freedom fighters, waging a battle to protect its lands and its people. Turkey and Qatar sound the same, and unfortunately they share the same support and ideology as Hamas terrorists. NATO members should immediately reject Turkey welcoming Hamas, funding Hamas, or supporting Hamas. NATO members should instead demand that Hamas leaders be immediately extradited and face the justice that they deserve. Now let's take some questions from our audience watching live on social media.
Thank you, Doron. There's breaking news right now that Canadian authorities foiled an Iranian attempt to assassinate the renowned Jewish jurist Eylon Levy. What are your thoughts on this breaking news and what Iran is doing around the world to target Israelis and Jews?
Well, first of all, Eylon Levy was the Treasury Secretary of Canada. I've met him in the past, and he is a person who stands for human rights, not just Jews and Israelis, but human rights throughout the entire world. I'm not at all surprised with this announcement that Iran would try to assassinate Eylon Levy, because if he stands for human rights, that is exactly the opposite of what Iran stands for. Iran is a regime that it keeps its people in a constant sense of terror. The mullahs are the enemies of the people. If they remove their hair covering, as we've seen, they're gunned down in the streets. There's no freedom of expression in Iran. Their voting is a hoax because they vote for a prime minister, whereas Khomeini, the Ayatollah, is always still in power and calling the shots. So they're not even really voting for anyone, meaning there are no real human rights in Iran for the Iranian people. And if Iran sees somebody that's supporting human rights throughout the world, especially if he's a Jew, he would obviously be a target. The world needs to step back and look at this and say, look, this is a person that supports human rights, not only for Jews, but for me, for Christians, for Muslims, for anyone. And if Iran is targeting him, then maybe one day Iran is going to target me. That is a question that everyone in the world needs to be asking, which is why there needs to be a global effort to shut down Iran, to shut down their terror activities, their nuclear program, and to have a regime change that is going to be a country of the people of Iran and not that small group of mullahs who keeps them as hostages in their own country.
Our next question is from our Instagram Live from Stacy in Detroit, who asks, what diplomatic pressure should be put on Turkey? They are advertising as a tourist destination.
I mean, I think that this is absurd. We've really seen how Turkey under Erdogan has gone from being an incredible tourism destination, both for Americans, for Europeans. I visited there, into a state that is quasi-sponsoring terror, a state that has become an enemy of the West and an enemy of Israel. And it is important to note that Turkey is a member of the North American Treaty, the NATO, that they have other countries, major Western countries, that they are in a pact with, and therefore these countries made that pact with them because Turkey used to be Western facing. This is the time to stop Turkey. If they are willing to house Hamas terrorists and support Hamas terrorists, then they are willing to support terrorism. This needs to be a wake-up call, and Turkey, all the NATO countries should immediately call Turkey to the table and let them know, if you want to continue getting support of NATO allies and the support of the Western world, do not think that you can bring terrorists, mass terrorists, who are right now responsible for 101 Israelis who are suffering inside terror dungeons. These are the same people that with the snap of their finger can let our hostages go. If you want to provide cover for them, then you're not going to get our support. Very simply, that is what has to be laid on the table. And if it is, then Turkey will have a real decision to make.
Our next question is from our Instagram stories. Someone who asks about incoming Republican Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who has threatened U.S. sanctions against the International Criminal Court if it issues an arrest warrant for Israeli leaders, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. What's your reaction to this and what you're expecting from the incoming Trump administration?
Look, I'm thrilled simply because this is a ray of light, of truth, that really shines on how absolutely absurd and demented the International Court of Justice really is. This is supposed to be a court that is deciding international law and justice and morality for the world. And of all the regimes in the world, of Hezbollah, of the Houthis, of you have terror regimes all over the world. You have Al-Qaeda operating in the world. You have a ISIS regime in the world. You have people in southern Sudan who have 450,000 have died and have been taken as slaves. You have northern Nigeria. You have China and Russia. And of all of these places in the world, the one place that the International Criminal Court is actually saying that they're going to arrest the leaders is Israel. Can we think of anything more absurd? If anything, maybe we should be thankful that they said this, because finally there is now a incoming Senate Majority Leader Thune, who actually says, okay, look at what these people are doing, and we're going to pull back funding. I think every major country that has any self-respect should immediately withdraw its funding from an International Court of Justice that is everything but just. So this is a welcome breath of fresh air regarding what I think of the Trump administration and the Biden administration. At the end of the day, the United States is Israel's greatest ally. And we expect from our ally, the American people, that they will stand with Israel as they're doing. And they know that Israel stands with them. This is a fantastic alliance. It's an alliance of friendship, and it's an alliance of shared values. Both the United States and the state of Israel stand against terror and stand for freedom. Thank you.
Our next question from our live stream is about IDF operations in Lebanon. The IDF just published a statement saying that they located dozens of Hezbollah launchers and rockets inside Lebanon. How difficult is it to find these launchers, and how many more do you think there are?
Thank you for the question. Look, I've been there myself. I've been inside Lebanon, gone into southern Lebanon, where if you turn around just in the distance, you can see Israeli villages from inside Lebanese villages. And in one of those areas, Ras Al Talatin, which is just a kilometer, less than a mile off the border of Israel, I went into a home. In the back of the home, there's an olive orchard full of olive trees. You go in and you see an olive tree, and directly under the root of the olive tree, the husk of the olive tree is a small door. You open up that door, it's like the door to a hobbit home, and you enter an underground terror world. That is what Hezbollah has built all over southern Lebanon. You walk in the homes and there's rocket launchers with rockets. There is scarcely a home in all of southern Lebanon where you don't find Kalashnikovs. These are machine guns that are Russian made, that are often used by terrorists, weapons, over-the-shoulder RPGs, and grenades. Hezbollah has essentially turned all of southern Lebanon into a war zone that was prepared to carry out an October 7th attack against Israel. The only way to deal with this is for Israel to go home by home and completely destroy all of that terror infrastructure. We're doing it at great risk, really for one reason. We don't want to put our soldiers at risk, our sons and daughters at risk. The only reason why we are allowing our loved ones to carry out this dangerous mission is because there are 60,000 people that cannot return to their homes in Israel. And there are millions of people in Israel on a daily basis that are suffering under rockets, missiles, and ballistic missiles coming from Lebanon. This is a tough job. I think there's a lot of weapons remaining in Lebanon. Even though we can see the cracks in Hezbollah, there are still a lot of weapons that remain, but we absolutely have to finish the job. As Douglas Murray, a great supporter of Israel, often says, there's no putting out 80% of a fire. The fire of Hezbollah has got to be completely extinguished so that the people of Israel can live in peace. And we will do whatever it takes to do that so we can live in peace. And you should just know, the elimination of Hezbollah will enable every single person watching this right now to live in peace as well.
Okay, our last question today is from Hillary on Instagram. It's a question that's getting a lot of traction from our live chat. And Hillary asks, why did Qatar expel Hamas terrorists? Why this move now? What do you think was going on behind the scenes that led Qatar to make this decision?
Look, I wasn't party to the actual discussions. What I can explain is the timing. We know that Qatar made this insistence one day after the United States election. So therefore, people can draw whatever type of conclusion they want, whether it is the incoming suspected pressure from the Trump presidency or whether it's the Biden presidency that is going for a strong push against Qatar. But it's clear that Qatar is a country that has been supporting Hamas for years. They are the ones that have been giving cash to Hamas. They have brokered between Hamas and Iran, and Qatar have been playing both sides of the field. On one hand, they say that they're a country that loves the West. They house in a very large port of the United States. And on the other hand, as the United States itself knows, they fund groups of terror. So they're really playing in both worlds. And I think whoever is pressuring Qatar, and I'm assuming it's from the United States, had a moment of clarity and said to them, there's a line being drawn on the sand. Choose your friends. Do you want Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, Russia, and China? Or do you want the United States and Europe? What's the difference? The United States and Europe are democratic, free countries that respect human rights, whereas all of the others are despotic regimes of terror that have no human rights. I think the question has now been clearly put in front of Qatar, and I think they're expelling Hamas terrorists, which they've housed for more than a decade in the lap of luxury, is a step in the right direction, but we can't stop there. They cannot be involved in any support of terror. And the world needs to come together and say, Qatar, you want to host the World Cup? You want to be a part of the West? Well, then support human rights, support democracy, and stand by your West. Choose your friends. Don't play two sides of the same field. Thank you very much for your questions. I would also like to announce that we have a new Spanish language channel. Links are in the description and across our platforms. Thank you for joining us today at the Israel Citizen Spokespersons Office. We are here every day at 3 p.m. Israel time, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're here to bring you the news, you the commentary, so that you will know the truth and you can tell everyone else around you. And together, we can support the state of Israel and most importantly, support the truth. Thank you.